Hello, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL. I'm Chris, thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm taking a look at 10 iconic, game-changing fragrances and letting you know if I think they're still relevant to wear in 2025. Stay tuned. What is an iconic, game-changing fragrance? In my opinion, it's a fragrance that when it was released, nothing like it had come before. It was completely unique. It changed the game. It moved the goalposts. It changed the parameters of what was acceptable as a mainstream men's masculine fragrance. A trailblazing fragrance that changed things up, like the game. It changed the game. So there were many imitations that came after, but these are the icons. These are the ones that did it first. But for a few of these icons, we're going back to the 90s. So if a fragrance was relevant in the 90s, can it still be relevant all these years later in 2025? Let's find out. And to find out, we're going to drop straight into the middle of the 90s for this iconic game changer, Jean-Paul Gaultier's La Malle. At the time, this was an ultra-modern take on a masculine lavender men's fragrance. It made things much sweeter and a little bit more feminine smelling at the time. But throw it in a bottle that looks like a muscled male torso and suddenly it becomes masculine, right? Well, that seemed to work for Jean-Paul Gaultier because this was a game-changing fragrance. People lapped this up, including me. I was wearing this from probably maybe late 90s, early 2000s. This was my signature scent for about a decade because it was such a beautiful fragrance and it was liked by so many people. I was at that stage in life where I was wanting to wear fragrances that I knew people would like. You know, I was single and you want some compliments, you want some positive attention. This was the boy that was going to do that for you, and yeah, it worked. This didn't just change the game in the fragrance world, this changed the game for me because it completely altered the way that I viewed wearing a fragrance, and like I said, it ended up becoming my signature scent for a decade, if not more, and I still wear it to this day. So that brings me to the question, is it still relevant today? For this one, it's a little bit of yes and no. I still think it smells sensational. I love wearing it because it has been around since the 90s. It's maybe got a little dated. It's got to the point now where people are probably associating this with something that maybe they used to wear in high school or smell when they were in high school or wear in the 90s, and quite a lot of time's passed since then. So if it has dated, it's only dated in people's minds because they have a prior association. If you strip all that away and you get someone who's never smelled La Malle before to smell it for the first time, I don't think they'd think it would smell old or dated or, you know, granddadish or anything like that. It doesn't smell like some of those old school men's fragrances that do smell maybe a little bit granddadish, something like Creed's Bois de Portugal. People can accuse it of smelling a little bit old, a little bit vintage. I don't think this does. It's still sweet, it still smells modern enough to me, and I think you definitely can still wear it today. If you want to bypass people's potential associations that they have with this fragrance, then you can wear a more up-to-date version of this DNA. You won't go wrong with La Malle Elixir, La Malle Elixir Absolute, either of those two. Probably even better, I would say, is La Malle Le Parfum. You still get all the benefits of that beautiful mint lavender La Malle DNA, but you get some extra iris, you get some extra vanilla, which brings it into the modern era just a little bit more. But I would still wear this today. Game changer, and it's still going strong. The next game-changing fragrance did a similar thing, actually. It brought a sweetness and a femininity to a masculine fragrance. From Dior, this is Dior Homme EDT. This was the original version that I think was released in 2005. There is a current version called Dior Homme Original, which smells very similar to this. The thing that Dior Homme did was bring this powdery, makeup-like, whatever you want to call it, lipsticky iris into a man's fragrance. Before this, it was a smell that was associated with more feminine fragrances. But again, take that slightly feminine leaning smell, put it in a bottle that says Homme on it, and all of a sudden, it's a new game-changing masculine fragrance. And it did that. It was really popular and it sparked off a whole load of flankers from this. Dior Homme Intense, Dior Homme Parfum, Dior Homme Eau for Men, one of my particular favorites, sadly discontinued. Then we got other designer brands playing with that powdery lipsticky iris like Valentino, Prada, L'Homme. They used that same sort of idea and put their own twists on it. And those fragrances for those brands are also very popular lines. But to my knowledge, the one that got there first, the one that dared to be brave and to be bold and make a statement and do something different was Dior Homme, the original from 2005. This is an amazing smell. I love still wearing it today. I would probably lean towards the original Dior Homme Parfum and Dior Homme Intense over this, but I still love this one because of all of them. It's probably the most versatile. I do really enjoy Dior Homme 2020, but it smells completely different from this. It doesn't have that powdery iris. It's maybe a touch more modern, I guess, although you could argue that they're both about the same in terms of the modernity. Not everyone loves the iris at the heart of the Dior Homme line, but that's not a question of whether it's relevant or not in 2025. I think it absolutely is. Iris is still a note in masculine perfumery that is going strong. If you wear Dior Homme Original, or if you're lucky enough to have one of the original bottles before it became Dior Homme Original, then you can rock that in 2025. You are still gonna kill it. You're probably still gonna get compliments. It is absolutely still relevant. In 2008, masculine perfumery suddenly became sweeter. It became more gourmand and dessert-like. This was not traditionally, again, a masculine smell, maybe something that was found more in female perfumery, but Paco Rabanne in 2008 released 1 Million, and it changed the game. 1 Million is a warm and spicy woody fragrance with a big dose of sweetness. You've got to have a sweet tooth to enjoy this fragrance. If sweet, indulgent style fragrances, gourmand fragrances aren't your thing, this is probably going to be a bit too sweet. I would say this is still a very unisex smell. Women could easily wear this fragrance. I know that this is marketed to men and it's become accepted that this style of fragrance, this sweet, spicy, warm, woody, ambery scent profile is now a masculine sort of smell, but I think if a woman wore 1 Million, it would smell amazing. So this definitely sweetened things up in masculine perfumery. You could argue that it wasn't the first masculine mainstream designer gourmand fragrance because we had Mugler's Angel Men in 1996. That is often cited as being the first mainstream designer gourmand fragrance, but I think this is even sweeter, even more dessert-like, and even more gourmand than Amen. That went the coffee route, this goes full on dessert. Is it still relevant to wear in 2025? For this one, as much as I love the smell, I'm gonna say no for this one. I think it still smells great, but I feel like we've got past that trend of ultra sweetness. If you want a good but more modern version of 1 Million, go for the Elixir or Royale. I think they take what is really good about this fragrance, but they put a bit more of a modern twist, and both those fragrances add some backbone, a bit of masculine attitude, a bit of extra structure, and I think that's the main reason why this one has dated, because it doesn't have that structure, that backbone, that attitude. It's still a nice smell, I'd still wear it, and I do appreciate it for what it was, but I think in 2025, one of the more modern iterations of this, one of its flankers, are a better choice. All the way back to the good old 80s for this one, late 80s, although there is a case to be made that this one was born actually in 1985. From 1988, Davidoff's Cool Water. One of the first truly aquatic men's mainstream fragrances, with its marine notes, lavender, mint, but what is quite prominent for me in Cool Water is the herbal notes. There's rosemary and coriander. I'm sure many of you know that in 1985, Creed released a fragrance called Green Irish Tweed by perfumer Pierre Bourdon. He may or may not have been properly credited with that fragrance at the time, and he may or may not have been a little peeved by how that all played out. So in 1988, Pierre Bourdon decided to release another fragrance that smelled very similar to Creed's Green Irish Tweed, but a lot more affordable, and that was Cool Water. Yeah, they don't smell exactly the same. You get that freshly cut grass, violet leaf in Green Irish Tweed, which I think does set it apart from this. They definitely have similarities, but that is greener and grassier. This one is definitely more watery and aquatic. Before I fell in love with La Malle, this was the fragrance that I wore for a good maybe 2 to 3 years. I only owned one fragrance. I was young, I couldn't afford to own more than that, and this is the one that I owned because my sister smelled this on some Turkish waiters on holiday, and she would not stop talking about how good it smelled. So I didn't have any other way of researching fragrances back then, so I thought what my sister says she likes is probably a good one to go with. So I went with Cool Water. I'd say that this was almost as successful as a very crowd-pleasing, mass-appealing, compliment-getting fragrance as La Malle was. Maybe not quite as much as La Malle. That was a bit more of a game changer, but this one still definitely changed the game. It became very popular and it was a hugely enjoyable smell. I've tried to wear this now in 2025 and I just can't get away from the fact that this was something I used to wear a long time ago. That is my association, of course, going back to that whole thing of someone's never smelled it before. Would it still smell dated? Probably not, but this is all my opinion. And because I wore this so much, so heavily when I was younger, in my late teens, I do associate it with that time of my life. So for me, I would say that this is a little bit dated. I don't think it's still relevant in 2025. It pains me to say that because I have loved it so much in my life, but you can still wear it. I just think you've got better choices these days than this one. I'm going back to Dior for this because we have to give Sauvage some credit for its popularity. Sauvage is actually classified as an aromatic fougere. I would say it's a modern aromatic fougere because it uses that classic masculine aromatic note of lavender, but it's overdosed with ambroxan, given a little bit of spiciness, and you get the modern day phenomenon that is Sauvage. The strength, I think, of Sauvage is that it takes something that is tried and tested, something that is associated as a timeless masculine smell, that aromatic lavender, but it adds all these modern characteristics. And what it layers on top of this aromatic fougere to make it this modern aromatic fougere is an incredibly appealing and likable smell. It's clean, it's simple, it's uncomplicated, it smells great, the quality is superb. The strength of this as an EDT, this is a beast mode EDT fragrance, and you don't come across many of those. People generally love this smell because it's so uncomplicated and simple. It's very mass appealing. People enjoy a clean and simple smell. So Sauvage played on that, took a bit of a timeless DNA, really clever stuff by Francois Demachy, and you get Sauvage. It changed the game. It became the biggest selling men's fragrance on the planet. I think it might still be, maybe. Is it still relevant in 2025? Absolutely, yes. I still love this. I know it's played out. I know a lot of people wear it. I know it's popular. It's still a fantastic smell. I still find it hugely enjoyable, and I still think it smells very modern despite it being a decade old now. I think this is still relevant big time in 2025. The next one is still Dior, and it's still Sauvage because, in my opinion, when they released this fragrance, they did another game changer with Sauvage Elixir. Sauvage Elixir takes some of that clean, uncomplicated, lavender, aromatic, masculine, timeless smell, but this time it darkens things up. It's more robust, it's spicier, it's stronger, and it's got more backbone. I'm calling this a game changer. I know it's a flanker, but it changed the game in terms of the marketing aspect of fragrances. This was the first designer fragrance that used the word elixir to denote a flanker of an original. We've had fragrance brands called Elixir and fragrances that have Elixir in the name before this one, but this took the world by storm. This changed the game more than any other fragrance called Elixir, so much so that, well, I don't need to tell you how many elixirs we have. Every brand has an elixir, pretty much. Not all. Chanel haven't gone there yet, and there's still another few, but a lot of brands are jumping on that bandwagon. Some brands have multiple elixirs. Boss, I'm looking at you. All this influx of endless elixir fragrances. And by the way, elixir is just a marketing term. It doesn't really mean anything. It just means it's another version of a pre-existing DNA. If it weren't for this, I don't think we'd have all those elixirs. They wouldn't be here. So this one is responsible for that. It changed the game for better or worse with elixirs, because even though elixir doesn't really mean anything, it doesn't really mean it's stronger, it does maybe push brands to create something a little bit different, to be a bit more daring, maybe create something a little bit more special. Not every elixir does that, but some do. I think because of this, because this was an elixir, we've got some fantastic elixir fragrances that maybe wouldn't be here if it weren't for this. Is it still relevant to wear in 2025? Of course, it's a sensational fragrance. It was only released in 2021. 4 years later, still relevant. Speaking of Chanel and them so far being able to resist the temptation of an elixir fragrance, although I think L'Exclusif is maybe their little unofficial version of an elixir. Anyway, they changed the game with Bleu de Chanel. Bleu was released in 2020 and it was this beautiful blend of citruses, mint, pepper, ginger, incense and sandalwood. Not an aquatic in the classical sense that it smells like the ocean. It doesn't have a sea saltiness to it. This just evokes a poetic expression of the deep blue ocean, of the feeling you get maybe when you dive into a deep blue ocean. Because of its citrus, it's got a lovely clean element to it. Some people say that it's got shower gel-ish vibes, and I don't think that's a negative because I think shower gel is designed to smell fantastic. It smells clean and invigorating, and I think Bleu de Chanel does smell clean and invigorating, and people like a man to smell clean and invigorating. It's not a complex smell, it's not challenging, it is quite simplistic in what it's doing, but like I said earlier, people enjoy simplicity, and sometimes less is more, sometimes simple is best, sometimes you just gotta keep it simple, stupid. Chanel did that, they kept it simple. I don't think we'd have the blue trend that we now have if it weren't for Bleu EDT. It's an icon, it changed the game, it did something different, it was unique when it was first released. It is still a stunning fragrance. Whichever iteration you choose, whether it's the EDT, the EDP, the Parfum, or the new L'Exclusive, still a smell that you can wear today. It smells modern enough because it's got a timeless appeal. I would absolutely still wear Bleu de Chanel, any version, in 2025. Spicing things up now a little bit with Viktor&Rolf's Spicebomb. I don't own the original Spicebomb anymore. I've had a bottle and run that dry. This one is the latest release though, Metallic Musk. The reason I'm holding this one up is that I think it does smell very similar to the original. It definitely connects with that spicy DNA, more so than any of the other flankers. In 2012, the original Spicebomb brought spice to the game in a big way. Of course, we'd had spices in fragrances before that, but this brought spice, all the spice. An explosion, a cacophony of spices. So you can see where they might have got the name from. Nothing quite like this existed before it in the designer realm. People loved it. It's very diffusive, very mass appealing. All these spices just jumping off your skin, just punching out into the air. It's an excellent DNA. It was unique when it was released. People enjoy it. It's very mass appealing, but sort of in an invigorating, energetic, exciting way. I still feel that spices are very prominent in modern day perfumery in 2025. So therefore, I think the original Spicebomb is still highly relevant in 2025. Metallic Musk is the newest iteration. I guess it's a little muskier, maybe just a little airier, but still, I don't think it modernizes that original anymore. I think it is just as good. I would say either version, this latest release or going all the way back to the original Spicebomb. Fantastic fragrance, and I think in 2025 still very relevant. In 1996, a fragrance came along that evoked the ocean. It gave us a sea salty marine aquatic. To my knowledge, I don't think it had been done before, certainly not in the designer realm. When Armani gave us Acqua di Gio, it changed the game. It takes clean citrusy notes and blends them beautifully with this sea salty marine accord. In 1996, this smell was pretty new for masculine designer perfumery. It's energetic, it's exciting, it evokes imagery of the ocean, of a clean, well put together man. I know we'd had Cool Water before this, but this one for me is even more sea salty marine aquatic. And when it came along in 1996, after Cool Water being released in 1988, this one smelled more modern as well. But does it still smell modern? I'd say it does. I'd say this is still relevant in 2025. I know there's associations with this because people wore it so much back in the day, but in terms of the scent profile, of the smell, of the notes used in this marine, aquatic, sea salty, fresh, clean, citrusy DNA, I think it's still going strong in 2025. In 2007, Tom Ford arrived with his private line of fragrances, the Private Blend. With this, he brought the leather into masculine perfumery in a way that had never been done before. This was an iconic game changer and one of my favorite fragrances of all time. Tuscan leather. Blended sensationally with that leather is raspberry, saffron, olibanum and jasmine. This fragrance still blows my mind. It might just be because I'm remembering the first time that I smelled it, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. It knocked my socks off. I didn't know a fragrance could smell like this, and it was just a smell that really resonated with me. It was so big and proud and loud and bombastic and self-assured and brimming with confidence. All these things wrapped up into this beautiful masculine smell. Just incredible. It absolutely changed the game of what we could do with masculine perfumery. Again, it has certainly become iconic. Without this, we wouldn't have any of the ombre leathers, which have probably at this point become even more popular than that, because ombre leather EDP just softened the edges. It took a similar sort of scent profile to Tuscan leather, but it rounded things off. It made things smoother, just a bit more mass appealing, a bit more mainstream. Ombre leather kept everything that was great about Tuscan leather, but made it a bit more wearable. I still prefer this over ombre leather. It's maybe not as wearable, not as versatile, but this is that leather raspberry jasmine combo in its purest, in its most raw and unfiltered form, and I love it for that. 18 years later, is Tuscan leather still a relevant smell? Is it still a relevant fragrance in 2025? Well, you know what? I am not even going to insult your intelligence by giving you an answer to that, because I think you know the answer. Okay, there are 10 iconic game-changing designer fragrances. I've probably missed some out. If I have, let me know. What do you think are the best game-changing fragrances, and are they still relevant in 2025? Hit me with what you've got. I'd love to see if I've missed anything absolutely essential out, so drop those down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know what to do. Give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.